AI-powered search was really good in 2025, with a lot of changes happening almost daily. I did some testing on several of the popular ones to see which ones worked best. I've also carried out side-by-side comparisons using the exact same prompt, which I'll show towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. Also, as a quick overview on what AI-powered search is, with traditional search, you'd write your question into, say, Google, it would return multiple links, and you then had to visit one by one until your question was answered. Now with AI search, you still type your question, but instead of getting links back, it will search the internet for relevant sources, collating this information and providing you with a well-researched and sourced answer. Now quickly before we get stuck in, my criteria for a site to appear in this video was simple. It had to be easy to use, no download required, and have good free options. Now let's jump straight in with Perplexity, one of the most well-known AI search engines online. They offer free unlimited searching they call Auto, which provides a shallow search alongside a more concise answer. With that said, if you're in need or looking for surface level information like sports scores or a quick rundown on news stories, it's more than adequate. However, if you need a deeper or more thorough answer, they also offer a Pro Search with 5 free searches a day. Pro Search returns more sources and an overall more detailed answer. You have 3 options to choose from. Pro Search, which uses Perplexity's own Sonar Pro model, which is a very capable AI, don't get me wrong, but I would recommend you actually opt to use one of their recently added reasoning models, so either O3 Mini or Deepseek R1, which, don't worry, it's hosted in the US as they made crystal clear, mentioning it everywhere that Deepseek is written on their site. I found these reasoning models return, in my testing, a better formatted and detailed answer, but you can be the judge of that. You can actually see as part of a Pro Search, you'll search using different terms to find more relevant sources before providing an overall answer to your query. So let's look at the difference between a Pro and no Pro search. I ran this exact same query through all 3 Pro models, and here are the results. And as you can see in the Pro search, what it's done is it's found and searched for different types of queries. So it used multiple different queries to find different sources. It then pulled back 37 of these and used the Reasoning R1 model in this case to provide a really full answer. And this is really detailed and really useful. Now, if we look over at the free version or the unlimited version, their auto version, it only actually provided 9 sources instead of the 33, and the answer was very succinct. And to be honest, if you're going to do a query like this, which is a bit more complex than your simple, what's the current weather, this is probably where you would want to use your Pro model. And if you have a query that isn't really complex, like Poe is the #1 chess player in the world, you can easily go and just use the free model. It provided 8 sources, but it got the correct answer. And to be honest, that's all you need. If you were to use the Pro Search, you'd get 30 sources back, but again, you get the exact same answer. So this is where the free model really excels, is for those quick questions that have a single or a short answer and aren't very complex. Next up on the list is a not so commonly known one called U.com. It's actually been around longer than Perplexity, but hasn't become as popular. It also has a nice free unlimited option called Smart, and their version of Perplexity's Pro Search is called Research, which provides a more detailed, thorough search. Unfortunately, you're also limited here with 3 a day, so I'll use them sparingly. Their research agent does do a lot more thorough search, and I found that the end result is a more accurate and full answer. I actually lean on this more than Perplexity Pro Search from time to time. Now, the difference between Research Search and Smart Search, we'll say that 10 times, is noticeable, and you can see in this example now. And similar to Perplexity Pro's search, it actually goes through, takes your query, creates different other queries, and then searches them to find multiple sources. It found about 120 for this over 24 seconds, which I sped up just for this demo. Now, as you can see, the answer that it reveals is really good. It's got headings, bullet points, it's easy to read, and it's got citations throughout, so you can double check any of the answer that it provides. Now, let's quickly switch tune to some of the more recently released models out of China. If you've not been living under a rock in the past week, you've probably heard of Deepseek R1, which has the added benefit of search, which can be ticked on for free unlimited AI searching. Unfortunately, due to its popularity, the search function no longer seems to be working for me a lot of the time. However, when it did work, it worked quite well, which is unfortunate. It allowed me to search and found relevant sources and provided a pretty good answer. I can't really recommend this one for now, as it doesn't always work, but it's one to keep an eye on in the future. Now, another Chinese model that you might not have heard of is Qwen 2.5 Max by Alibaba. Like DeepSeek, it's free and unlimited for now. It's a very capable model. It has a good search functionality and provides a well-rounded answer. Like DeepSeek, there's no Pro search option here, so the sources it pulls for aren't bad, but unfortunately, it's not as thorough as other platforms. And here's some example of the outputs. Now let's look at Search GPT by OpenAI. It provides free unlimited searches, and for my testing, it will provide the shortest but complete answer possible, so don't expect an essay. If you want a to-the-point answer, this is your model. Now with Search, you can also opt to use their new reasoning model O3 Mini if you like a longer and more thought-about answer. From what I can tell, it doesn't do a deep search like Perplexity or U.com, so it uses the same sources. However, with the advanced reasoning model, the results tend to be more thorough. It's also the model that you would want to use if you're asking questions which, say, involve maths, like what's the tax implications of earning a certain amount of money. I'm still experimenting with it, but I actually do prefer fast and to the point answers sometimes. Next on this, we're getting close to the end, don't worry, is Google itself. Now, Google is a bit different and harder to control. Let me explain. While searching for an answer on Google, depending on what you've searched for, it may provide you with an AI overview, or it may choose not to. As this isn't always guaranteed and can't be controlled from what I can tell, it's hard to rank the quality. Google's rolling its AI overview to more results from what I can tell, and hopefully in the future, Google will allow us to control if this is always on or off. When you do get an AI overview, it's very to the point and quite useful. It did have a tendency to tell people to eat small rocks a day or put glue on their pizza, but it's slowly getting better at not doing this. Now we move on to Google's Gemini. So there is two models right now that have been released, and one that has recently been released, the thinking model. That's their reasoning model to compete with O3 Mini and the Deepseek R1. So both of these have capabilities to do search. So if we were to, for example, use the Gemini Flash, it's the quick one. It's kind of like Search GPT without the reasoning model. It does a quick search and it provides you a nice succinct answer with results as well. So lots of citations so you can go through as well. And if you want something that's a little bit more capable, so you're asking for example, tax incentivizations for UK in 2025, you can go ahead and do that, and it's going to do some quick figures for you as well. I found the reasoning models are really good when talking about maths, as we found with the previous models. And again, once it's finished searching, it'll actually show you the citations through it as well. So both of these are very capable, and to be honest, I'm going to have to play around it a bit more. This thinking model literally just came out today as I'm recording, so I'll have another video out on this shortly. And lastly, we have Copilot by Microsoft. While probably on par with SearchGPT in the way it doesn't source many sites before answering, it also doesn't like to provide worthy answers, which is the exact same as SearchGPT. It's useful for quick answers that don't require a lot of different sources or any complex answers that a reasoning model such as O3 Mini would actually excel at. I've tried it with a few different more complex queries, and to be honest, the result wasn't something I would really rate as high in terms of quality compared to, say, Perplexity or U.com. Now onto comparisons. To keep things fair, I've split them into two buckets. The first bucket is around answering questions that are relatively simple and easy to find an answer for. The second bucket is around answering more difficult questions that require not only sources, but also reasoning to answer. For the first bucket, I've used non-reasoning models as they're the fastest and to the point. So that's your Perplexity Auto, your Search GPT without reasoning, Copilot, Gemini 2.0 Flash, and U.com Smart Model. So for the relatively simple queries, I made sure that each one had two questions to be answered in the same query to make sure that the models were referencing multiple sources before answering. So first up, we have, when did Donald Trump take office in 2025, and on what date will his presidency end? And if we look at the results, I honestly think Copilot did a really good job. U.com and SearchGPT also did a good job. It answered the query in a short sentence. I just wanted to know those two answers, and it did that. Perplexity kind of took it a bit further and added a bit more information, which made it a bit more wordy for whatever reason. And Gemini actually flat out refused to even answer this one. Anything political, it seems that Gemini won't even answer this. So let's look at the next example. This one is, how long does it take to fly from New York, USA to London, UK, and which airline flies this route? And to be honest, I think U.com, Perplexity, and Copilot all do well here. SearchGPT and Gemini didn't really do well in this. It recommended me to use Google Flights for Gemini, and SearchGPT added random facts. U.com, again, it provided a really good estimate. Perplexity as well, in terms of around the 7-hour mark, and it provided a few more airlines actually fly these routes. Overall, I think U.com and Perplexity are probably the two lead here at the moment. And last week, I asked who is the current #1 ranked tennis player and who is the largest sponsor. And to be honest, only Perplexity actually got this correct. It was able to answer not only who the current #1 tennis player, which they all did, but also found that he had a sponsorship in 150 million from Nike. Everyone else either said that he got signed by Nike, but wouldn't actually give any figure to it. When I looked online and did a bit more of a deep search, I found it was actually a 150 million deal that he signed in 2022. So clearly some of the other models aren't doing enough searching on their basic models. So yeah, just be careful in regards to using these models. If you have multiple questions, I'd probably split it up into a single question before answering it. And if I was going to rank all these for the quick and simple searches, I'd definitely rank Perplexity at the top, U.com a close second. Now, Perplexity, I feel, finds a lot more sources than all these others. So if you want a more thorough answer, especially for this free unlimited search, definitely go with Perplexity. You can't go wrong there. U.com wasn't too bad as well. For some of the extra queries I did, it did a pretty good job. SearchGPT and Copilot wasn't bad. It doesn't seem to find a lot more sources. So if you were going to use them, just ask one question so it can find relevant sources. If you ask multiple questions in the same query, you're not going to get a really good response. And Gemini refused quite a lot of my queries, especially in the political ones. So I kind of steer clear of that at the moment. And Perplexity definitely is my go-to for now. And now we move on to the complex queries. These ones require more sources and more reasoning to come up with a really in-depth answer. I've got two here, one from Reddit, which is around the hobby of selling on eBay and whether or not they have to file for tax. And the second one is actually a personal one, which is I want to send a package to Australia. I'm currently in the UK. These are the dimensions. This is the weight. This is the value. What is the cheapest option? And for the complex queries, I'm using these different reasoning models that have a bit more advanced search. They have limitations. For example, Perplexity, you can only do 5 searches with their pro search a day. And just to show you what they're capable of. And now let's look at the complex query side hustle tax in the UK. So the first 3 models I looked at was SearchGPT, Perplexity, and U.com. Perplexity and U.com, actually reading it was easy for me. It broke it down into headings. It was clear. It wasn't overly wordy. SearchGPT did really well. It was just overly wordy for my liking. However, I think all 3 were kind of on par. They all found out that it was trading. It wasn't just casual selling. And the fact that you did have to register with HMRC, even if you made a loss this year, which they did. And now if we look at the other 3 models, so Gemini, Quinn, and Deepseek, I think out of all these, Quinn probably was the worst performing. It was just very blocky. It had the relevant information, so I guess can't really mark it down too much for that. Deepseek R1 was quite useful for this. And Gemini Flash also was a bit wordy, but they all came out with the same conclusion. You still need to log your tax return. It's counted as trading, as you have the intent to actually make profit. So overall for this one, I think they're quite close, to be fair. I think these reasoning models, and we'll find it into the next query as well, they're all quite close in terms of the output. For a less wordy one, Perplexity and U.com, I think, take the lead here. And onto the last complex query, which is sending a small package from UK to Australia. All 3 models were okay, average at best. This query was really difficult. Perplexity tried to put numbers towards it in terms of like going parcel to go, saying £13.84. But when I did a deeper research, I found that the cheapest was about 19 quid. So, I mean, all of them did suggest that you need to go to these comparison websites, and it makes sense because they wouldn't have that live data. You would have to put in all the dimensions, all the different weight, etc., and then get that feedback. So I think this was a really tricky, complex query. I just wanted to see how they would react. They found and highlighted the best places to go to, like Parcel to Go or Happy Post, to get a quote from them in terms of finding the cheapest carrier, as they are an aggregate of different carriers. So overall for this one, I don't think I have a preferred choice. I think Perplexity did well, SearchGPT and U.com did well. And Deepseek R1 unfortunately went offline while I was doing this query. And Quinn 2.5 Max, again, same Parcel to Go. So honestly, I think all of them did pretty well for this, and they all came back with the relatively same information, which is go to one of these sites that aggregates and has multiple different carriers on them. And so overall for these complex searches, I'd still rank Perplexity and U.com as the top 2 choices, to be honest. You can't really go wrong. Again, they have limitations. So Perplexity, you can only do 5 of these searches every day. U.com, you can only do 3. SearchGPT with the O3 meter, I think gives you 10 queries a day. So they may change that, they may reduce or increase them. I think if you run out of queries, SearchGPT is a really good alternative, and Deepseek R1 when it actually works. Gemini and Quinn, I wasn't too happy with at the moment. I need to do more testing with them both. I think Quen definitely has the more succinct answer and potentially not as many sources. And I think Gemini does have actual potential. So I want to go play around with that and actually might move up the list as I play around with it a bit more. But there we go. And so that's it. Overall, I recommend that you try Perplexity and G.com and search GPT, see how you go. I think for day-to-day activities, you can't go wrong just going to and sticking with Perplexity for now. Just any light queries, you can use their free auto model, or if you have a more complex answer, switch to the O3 mini reasoning and pro search attached to it to find and more sources and to actually have that more advanced reasoning model output a better, more succinct and readable answer. Let me know what search engine you use in the comments, and if you have any questions, let me know.